bruh, bruh. I mean, bruh. Like this chapter, man. This fucking chapter. This chapter right here. This chapter right here. Yo, top 5 Boku No Hero Academia chapter. Period. I don't care. I mean, maybe something will usurp this chapter. Maybe Horikoshi will continue to be a superb writer from now until the end of the manga. But for right now, this is the top 5 chapter, man. Boku no Hero Academia chapter 152 was incredible. Incredible. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Everything that happened was exactly what you want from a battle shonen manga, right? In the vein of sort of what Togashi has sort of laid out with Hunter x Hunter, right? This is what you want. You want legitimate battles that contain metaphor and figurative language and that do that move the narrative and move the story and move you as a reader, right? Like that's what you want, the bare minimum. That's what you want from a battle shonen, right? And of course you want the art to be great and you want it to be sharp and intuitive and very much aware of what readers will react to and love to react to. So the art was also superb for this chapter. But if we're gonna go back to like everything that sort of happened in terms of the battle and the narrative that's going on and everything else, I'm gonna talk about 3 things, right? The first thing that I'm gonna be talking about is what I've been talking about in terms of what it means to be a hero, what it means to be a yakuza, what it means to be a villain in Boku no Hero Academia, and how being one of those character types is either helpful or harmful in particular situations. I've been talking about this in the past few videos, if you've been keeping up and watching and everything like that. But if you haven't, check out my older videos, those reviews. I've been talking about this for a while. The second thing that I'm going to be talking about is the way that Mirio and this battle, particularly Mirio, is all about metaphor, right? Like I said, if you were a crummy battle shonen, this is a manga or an anime or whatever, you're not going to have any sort of metaphor, any figurative language that matters to the both to the particular narrative that's being told at a certain point in time, and just like the sort of plot and story as a whole, right? There's no impact, there's no real figurative language or impact in that figurative language, and this chapter had it in fucking spades. All right, so the third thing that I'm going to be talking about is Chisaki and the really interesting ways in which Horikoshi continues to develop his character, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and just enjoy the video. So just to quickly get into the hero, villain, yakuza thing, basically, like I said, heroes, villains, and yakuza are all particular character types that, in particular situations, are either at an advantage or disadvantage based on their character types and what quirks come with those character types, right? So if we're looking at someone like a hero, heroes are strong in their sense of justice in the way that they doggedly go about trying to save the day and things of that nature, right? But they're particularly weak, right? And one of their biggest flaws tend to be what sort of Cronus has been talking about, right? Like heroes always have things on their shoulders. They're always being weighed down by something. And then sometimes that can be helpful, right? In persevering, but it can also be harmful in putting them in forcing them to move into situations or to jump into situations that they're not necessarily prepared for, or that they haven't prepared for. So when we look at this chat, right? So that's something like heroes, right? Villains, probably not the complete opposite, but villains are just like, hey, I'm just gonna kind of do what I want, for the sake of me. Villains are very me, right? They're all kind of all about themselves, right? Toga's kind of all about himself. Twice is kind of all about himself in a different way, right? Psychologically, right? Shigaraki is all about himself in a different way, right? But they also sort of oddly understand that if they work together, they can be more about themselves in our right. It's sort of a paradox that happens, right? In that a team helps them be more individualistic. So that's something about villains that I've been saying a lot. When we go look at the Yakuza, the Yakuza are all about organization and a particular sort of dogma that is simply for the growth of the organization that is the Yakuza, right? Like that's what the Yakuza are. So they're very good at organizing plans and strategies and stuff like that, and seeing them through, right? Villains aren't particularly good at that. Heroes aren't even necessarily particularly good at that, right? But the Yakuza are, they excel at that, right? Chisaki excels at that. Cronus excels at that. So when we're looking at this chapter, we see all of that happen, right? You know, and like if we want to just talk about the general sort of battle, right? And the chapters leading up to this battle, Mirio was fucked from the beginning, right? Because he rushed, he did the hero thing, right? If you watch a sport, if you watch basketball, if you watch, you know, football, if you watch any team sport, soccer, any team sport that like that demands that you work as a team to win, like I said, game or whatever, right? Hero ball is not the way to go, right? Right? Like unless you're like, you know, Michael Jordan or something like that, right? But outside of that, hero ball is not the way to go. It almost always tends to lead towards some sort of disastrous end. And look, and this chapter is it. I mean, like we called this, right? We knew that, you know, when Mirio sort of met up with Chisaki, we understood from the jump that something really bad was going to happen to Mirio. We didn't know what it was, but we knew that something bad was going to happen. At the very least, he might have got injured or something like that. So when we're looking at this chapter, this is very much so a sort of, you know, I don't know what the word is, but basically like we've reached the sort of like apex of what, like the climax, right? Like of what was supposed to happen in this particular battle, right? Like what's supposed to happen when a hero rushes into a battle that a Yakuza has clearly planned out, right? So this is bad. It's all bad. It's all bad, Mirio. Oh, poor Mirio. Poor Mirio. Right? Like, I mean, it's really bad. So, this is going to lead me into talking about Mirio. And I want to talk about Mirio because this was just a fantastic chapter, right? Mirio was everything that a hero is supposed to be, right? But in being that, right, he fucked himself over, right? This is something that's happened multiple times. Like, it's happened over and over and over, right? It's not to say that Horikoshi is saying that heroes have to do this, but this is very much so an element of what it means to be a hero in particular situations, right? We've seen this time and time again. Kirishima versus Rappa, right? Like, he's fucked. He's in a bed, sitting down. He's hurt, right? Because he rushed in, right? He didn't, you know, he did the hero thing, right? All Might consistently did the hero thing. What happened? First, One For All gave him, you know, gave him the two-piece and fucking destroyed his intestines, right? And his stomach and all this other shit, right? Like, and he's just been slowly on a decline ever since, right? And then that last battle with One For All versus All Might, All Might again, like, you know, beat the shit out of One For All, but again, like, basically gave up his power and gave up his status as the #1 hero, right? Like, there's always a cost. Or like whenever heroes rush into particular situations. That's kind of like, I think, the thing that Horikoshi is trying to say. And this is one of the like key battles within the series that really shows you that if you are going to be a hero, you know, like if you are a hero character type, like, this is the thing. This is like par for the course. So, you know, I mean, like, as much as I'm like, fuck, man, like that shit killed me. That shit hit me to my core, man, when I saw Mirio get hit by that shot. You know, because it was like slow motion, panel after panel after panel, and then he finally gets hit by the thing, and you're like, fuck. But, I mean, dude, you rushed in, man. You had a team. You came in. You had a plan to, you know, save this little girl, right? And you fucked up. You done fucked up. You rushed in. You did the hero thing. In this particular situation that the Yakuza basically had the advantage in, and you lost your quirk. And I mean, like it's an awful thing to watch. And again, like, the metaphor that's going on in this battle is fantastic, right? When we see Mirio, you know, like when we think about Mirio's quirk, right, and his ability to phase through sort of objects, right? Even that is like, that's a metaphor, right? Because, like, you know, like it's odd. It's like, yes, like, it should be a quirk that makes things like that, sort of represents how he can kind of move through sort of life and coast and do things like that, because he can just phase through roadblocks that are in his path or whatever, right? But that doesn't happen. So, right, so we get like sort of like the opposite of that. We get that, like, his quirk actually impedes his progress, right? And so he has to work very hard to move forward. But what happened? And that's a great story. But clearly that wasn't enough, because now he doesn't have a fucking quirk. I mean, it's like stuff like that. It's like great writing, right? It's like, there is clearly a past that is written very well by Horikoshi, and then and that's supposed to be like very like heartwarming and you know, it makes us, you know, want to do things and persevere and things like that. And then quickly that all of that past, all of that struggle, all of that perseverance is like just, it's not gone, but it's like he doesn't have the quirk, and like now he has to take a different path. You know, within the narrative, within the plot, the story, like, and it's like, fuck, man, you know. But this is why I love Mirio versus the Mirio versus Chisaki and Kronos battle, because this is how you do battles. Battles are supposed to tell you things, right? Right, both visually, in terms of like the quirk, right? Like, and verbally, right? In terms of like the writing and stuff like that. That like you, that like makes you think like, wow, that was a really great way of making that particular point, right? Because there's always like a general point to these things in terms of shonen manga, but this is a great way of making that particular point, right? If you want to also think about just like, you know, Mirio is a splendid hero. I mean, like, I remember when he first came out, I was like, this guy's kind of, you know, he's kind of corny. He kind of, you know, like clearly he looks like All Might and he's sort of like an All Might archetype and stuff like that. But this chapter, like, Horikoshi really did the All Might aesthetic. Like, he put it out. And I also love the fact that like Mirio is very much so symbolic of like the sort of Western sort of superhero archetype, the sort of like sort of ways in which like you know, there's certain like heroes that just look very like, you know, kind of rinky dink, and it's almost gold, like right, like almost golden age sort of art, and also even like harkening back to sort of like Astro Boy, kind of like the Astro Boy sort of aesthetic, like with his dad and the sort of, you know, Calyx sort of thing, like, and all that stuff, right? Like all of these things are very, very representative of the ways in which that bullet represents a sort of erasure of that history, of that golden age history of the superhero, of the ways in which superheroes, you know, just needed to persevere to, you know, win the day and things of that, right, or win the battle or whatever. And that's why, like, this battle is such a great, that Mirio versus Chisaki is such a great battle in terms of the metaphor, in terms of the figurative language, in terms of everything that is going on with this battle. It's fantastic. It is phenomenal. It is a top, like I said, this is one of the reasons why it's a top 5 chapter. So if we're going to get into Chisaki, the really interesting thing that I think that Horikoshi does with Chisaki, right, is that he sort of says that, like, you know what, like, it sort of reminds me of, like, this sort of quote that, if you ever read, like, Angela Davis, or ever, like, heard Angela Davis speak or anything like that, one of the quotes that, like, is very, like, that one of her famous quotes, right, is when she sort of talks about that, like, you can't tear down the master's house by using the master's tools, right? And, you know, there she's talking about racism and homophobia and other social sort of constructions that are particularly harmful and that are extremely difficult to avoid and escape and stuff like that, right? But when we're looking at Boku No Hero Academia, when we're looking at this, we're looking at the way in which Chisaki very much so is using those tools, right? Like, not like, you're right, like in like the master's tools, in the sense that he believes, right, that like quirks shouldn't exist. He wants to, like, he doesn't want fucking anybody to have a quirk, I think. And, you know, he's just like, get out of here. Get out of here. Like, I want all y'all, like, I want all y'all with clerks to be quirkless, right? And, you know, it's odd because, like, you know, when you sort of think about it, you know, you might be tempted to sort of be like, well, if Chisaki, you know, Chisaki wants everyone to be quirkless and he wants everyone to be equal, and it's like, no, like, what he wants is like, what he wants is a space in which it is easier for him to maintain control, right? And like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it that Chisaki is all about, like, ruling and tyranny and stuff like that, right? And when we see Chisaki say, like, hey, like, he wants to eradicate all quirks, right? But he's using his own quirk, like, to do so. It's wild, right? It's like it's a weird, like, contradictor, like irony that's there, right? But at the same time, like, we understand that, like, this is something that happens all the time, right? Like, whenever, like, whether you're doing, like, activist work or whatever, or you're trying to evoke change, you're always right, like, if you're living in this particular, like, neoliberalist, like, capitalist society, like, you're always going to be using tools, like, or mass tools, right, to sort of try to break out of that sort of that sort of society that you're living in, right? So in this sense, right, like he's clearly using his quirk to try to break free of this quirk-filled society, right? And right, two questions sort of pop up, right? Does he really intend to, like, you know, like, is he going to shoot himself and like eradicate his quirk, right? Or is he going to act, or is he going to keep his quirk and, like, you know, rule that way, and be like, ah, ha, ha, I had an ideology and I had this set dogma, but haha, fuck it, I threw it in the trash because I want to rule all of you with an iron fist, right? So basically, this is a really interesting, right? Like, there's a way in which Mirio is all about is all about, like, you know, the hero, right? And that the hero has to maintain the particular society as it can be in terms of like a safe, peaceful, right, society, right? Chisaki's all about, like, upending that particular society that Mirio believes in, right? So this is a battle of clashing ideologies again. This is the thing that I really love about Horikoshi, right? Like, his writing has, like, fucking skyrocketed. I'm telling you, I feel like he had a conversation with Togashi at a bar, you know, one night, and that lasted like 6 hours, and he was like, yo, Togashi, how could I be a better writer, man? I mean, I wrote, like, you know, about 25 chapters of Boku No Hero. I wrote maybe 50 chapters of this manga, but I don't know, man. The writing's not up to par. Like, you know, what can I do to make it better? And, like, Togashi was like, look, man, you gotta go there, man. You gotta go to that dark place, man. You know what I mean? Like, they had a conversation, and clearly the writing has improved dramatically, I think. Because, like, if you look at sort of the first half of Boku no Hero, like, the writing wasn't on the same level. It was good, it was decent, but it wasn't like Togashi status, you know what I mean? Where, like, mangaka are really grappling with ideology, with philosophy, with dogmatic ways of living, with metaphor and all of these things, right? Like, this is something that Horikoshi is doing now, and I love it. Every battle so far that has happened within this arc has been, like, phenomenal. And I think some people may not like this arc so much. I think that there might be a few people that be like, oh, this arc's kind of weird. It's kind of all over the place. No, but, like, it's not. Like, there's a lot going on under the surface, right? Under the very literal level, in the figurative level, and, like, it's fantastic. It's phenomenal. So I think that's I guess that's kind of basically all I wanted to say. Well, no. Shouts out to Mirio, because you made a fan out of me, man. I mean, like, this is one of those arcs that has really, really sort of made me feel that, like, like, maybe you don't particularly maybe you're not particularly fond of a character at a certain point, but I think that, right, like, this is sort of a way in which, like, Horikoshi is trying to say that it is definitively the writer's job, right? It is definitively the mangaka's job, or the mangaka doer, or whatever, right? It is definitively their job to evoke feelings within their readers, right? Within the readers of their works. If they're not doing that, like, it's like no, like, that's not our job to, like, force feelings or something like that. This guy Horikoshi has continuously made characters viable, valuable, both on a literal level in terms of the story, plot, narrative, and on a figurative level in terms of, like, you know, what they're trying to say about particular, like, ideals within society and things like that, and how we feel, and, like, how we feel about those things, and how we feel about those characters because of how we feel about those things, right? So Kirishima, he's my guy now. Now Kirishima is my favorite fucking character in Boku no Hero, because that battle was incredible. But now I have to think about, man, this battle was also fucking incredible. So I have to, like, reevaluate what my top 5 Boku no Hero battles are, but most likely these two will be in them, right? So this is basically all I had to say about Boku No Hero Academia chapter 152. Like I said, the video was going to be longer than normal, but I had a lot to say, man. This chapter was fucking fire, man. I mean, like, we, like, at some point, we gotta get everybody's gotta come together. All the YouTubers out there. Shouts out to, One Vision. Shouts out to Dustin Reacts. Shouts out to SpongeBob. Shouts out to you know what I mean, like, Yume. Shouts out to Dragon666. Like, all of y'all we need to come together. We need to have a discussion. Whether it be on Twitter, whether it be on YouTube. But this was a phenomenal chapter, and this arc has been particularly phenomenal. And I think we need to do a live stream about why this arc. Oh, Nakamanga. Shouts out to Nakamanga. Y'all should check him out. But if all of us need to get together and talk about this arc and why this is such a fantastic arc. I think this is, like, top 3 arcs of the entire fucking manga, right? Like if I had to rank it personally, so far this is number 2. I don't know if it would be number 1 yet because it hasn't ended, but so far this is number 2. This is a phenomenal arc. It's done so much. The writing has improved. The art is fantastic. And that's basically all I gotta say about Boku no Hero chapter 152. So I'm gonna end the video here. I'm the Black Manga Critic, and I'm out.